My name is Natalie, and I am 35 years old. I have spent the last 10 years in a small coastal town, living in a cottage by the sea with my husband Liam. Our life has always been simple. Early mornings at the bakery where I work, the steady rhythm of the waves outside our window, and the comforting predictability of a routine we built together. Liam is a fisherman, spending most of his days on the water, always chasing the tides. The sea has been his second home, and I never minded that. But lately, it feels as if he belongs to it more than he belongs to me. He comes home later than usual, his voice carrying an unfamiliar distance, his presence feeling more like an absence. Tonight, I prepare dinner, just like I always do. The scent of seafood stew fills the kitchen, a meal he once loved. The table is set, the candle flickers, but the chair across from mine remains empty. I glance at the clock. An hour passes, then another. A growing unease settles in my chest, heavy and unshakable. When I finally hear his truck pull into the driveway, my hands are cold. He steps inside, carrying the scent of salt and wind. But something is different. There is no warmth in his movements, no familiar comfort in his presence, the weight in his posture, the way his shoulders slump, tells me everything before he even speaks. The silence stretches between us, thick and suffocating. His eyes finally meet mine, but they no longer hold the certainty I once knew. And in that moment, I realize something is about to change and nothing will ever be the same again. Natalie's breath catches in her throat as the words leave Liam's lips. A sharp, invisible force seems to press against her chest, making it impossible to breathe. The room around her blurs, the soft glow of candlelight flickering against the walls, the scent of the meal she had carefully prepared turning her stomach. The air between them is thick, heavy with something irreversible. He doesn't look at her. His hands are clenched at his sides, his shoulders tense as if bracing for impact. He mutters that he didn't mean for this to happen, that he met someone else, that it wasn't planned. The words come out flat, rehearsed, as if spoken too many times before. The man she had trusted, the man she had built a life with, is no longer hers. Her lips part, but no words come. The question lingers in her mind, unspoken at first. What did I do wrong? She forces it out, her voice barely more than a whisper. But he only exhales, running a hand through his hair, muttering another apology, as if the weight of his regret is enough to justify the wreckage he has left behind. Liam moves through their home with quiet efficiency, pulling open drawers, lifting shirts from hangers, stacking books into a small, worn duffel bag. Natalie watches, motionless, as her life unravels in front of her. Every item he takes is a piece of what they once were, their history reduced to objects that no longer belong to her. The old fishing rod he had cherished, the sweater she had bought him last Christmas, the dog-eared novel he never finished. At the door, he hesitates. A brief flicker of uncertainty passes through his eyes, but it is gone in an instant. He murmurs a final apology, so soft, it barely reaches her ears, and then he is gone. The silence swallows her whole. The distant roar of the ocean outside seems louder now, filling the emptiness he has left behind. And then the weight of it all crashes down. Her knees buckle, and she crumbles onto the floor, her body racked with sobs. Her hands clutch the fabric of her dress, as if holding on to something solid will keep her from completely shattering. But it is too late. She is already breaking. The morning light filters through the curtains, casting soft, golden patterns across the bed. For a fleeting second, Natalie stirs, caught in that hazy space between dreams and reality. She reaches out instinctively, her fingers searching for the warmth of Liam's skin, the familiar rise and fall of his breath beside her. But all she finds is emptiness, cold sheets, a hollow space where he used to be. And then, like a tidal wave crashing over her, the memory returns, the words, the way he packed his things, the sound of the door closing behind him. She pulls the blanket tighter around herself, as if shielding herself from the truth. But it is everywhere. The house feels like a mausoleum filled with remnants of a life that no longer belongs to her. His coffee mug still lingers in the sink, a faint stain of dried espresso clinging to the rim. His slippers sit by the door, untouched, waiting for a man who will never step into them again. The scent of she stops eating. Hunger feels distant, irrelevant. Food has no taste, no comfort. Sleep is worse. Every time she closes her eyes, she sees him, the way he used to laugh, the way his hand once found hers beneath the dinner table, the way he once looked at her like she was his entire world. But that world is gone. The days blur. The bakery becomes a place she merely moves through, a backdrop to her grief. People tell her time will heal, that she will be okay, but she doesn't believe them. How could she, when every breath feels like dragging herself through a storm she never saw coming? Then it happens. She is walking through the market, her arms wrapped around herself as she weaves through the familiar stalls. The scent of fresh bread, of salt in the air, of sun-warmed fruit, it all feels foreign, like a world she no longer belongs to. And then, just ahead, in the small cafe by the square, she sees him, Liam. He is sitting at a table, leaning slightly forward, his hands wrapped around a cup of coffee. Across from him, a woman, young, radiant, full of life. She throws her head back in laughter, tucking a loose strand of hair behind her ear as she gazes at him with admiration. And then Natalie sees it. He looks happy, not just content, not just at peace, but happy in a way she hasn't seen in a long time. Her stomach drops, ice cold. Her hands clench at her sides. She wants to move, to run, to disappear into the crowd before he... Too late. He looks up. Their eyes meet. For a moment, the world goes silent. She sees it all in his face, the flicker of shock, the flash of guilt, and worst of all, the pity. And in that moment, she knows she has lost him completely. Natalie's body is rigid, but she doesn't turn away. She doesn't run. Not this time. The pain is sharp, yes, but it no longer paralyzes her. Instead, it fuels her steps as she crosses the street, pushing through the cafe door. The hum of conversation barely registers in her ears as she moves forward, each step bringing her closer to the man who had promised her forever and the woman who had unknowingly taken her place. She stops beside their table, the weight of their stolen happiness pressing down on her chest. Liam stiffens, setting his cup down with careful precision, but he doesn't look at her. The woman glances up, confusion flickering across her face. Natalie's voice is steady, but her heart pounds against her ribs. Did she know? Did she know he was married? That he had walked away from a life, from a love, from a woman who had once been his everything? The woman's brows knit together as she turns to Liam, searching his face for an answer. But he says nothing. He stares at the table, fingers tightening around his coffee cup. Natalie waits. She waits for an explanation, for remorse, for something that will make this hurt less. But all she gets is a quiet plea. Natalie, please don't do this. That's when she understands. He has already moved on. In his mind, their story has ended, rewritten, with an ending he chose, an ending that erases her entirely. The realization is a knife to the chest, but she doesn't let them see her bleed. Without another word, she turns and walks out. The ocean is just beyond the cafe, the waves relentless against the shore. She walks straight to the beach, the salty air stinging her lungs. And there, with the endless sky above and the crashing tide below, she lets herself break one last time. The morning sun rises over the horizon, casting golden light across the water. Natalie sits on the edge of the bed, the weight of everything still pressing against her chest, but something feels different. The pain is still there, but it no longer suffocates her. She looks down at her left hand, at the ring that once symbolized forever. Slowly, deliberately, she slides it off. She walks to the shore, her bare feet sinking into the cool sand. The ocean breeze brushes against her skin, carrying with it the scent of salt and something else. Something lighter, freer. The waves crash and retreat, constant and unchanging, reminding her that life moves forward, no matter how much she once wished it wouldn't. She closes her eyes and makes a promise to herself. This will not destroy her. She will heal, even if it takes time. One day she will wake up, and Liam will not be the first thought in her mind. One day his absence will no longer feel like a wound. She takes a deep breath, letting the salty air fill her lungs. Love fades. People change. But she is still here, and she chooses to survive. As she watches the tide roll in, she realizes that every ending is also a beginning. Heartbreak is a universal experience, one that many people like Natalie endure in silence. In today's world, where social media constantly showcases idealized relationships, it's easy to feel like love should last forever. But the truth is, love changes, and sometimes people outgrow each other. Natalie's story teaches us an important lesson. When faced with betrayal and loss, we have a choice: to let it define us or to find the strength to move forward. If you are struggling with heartbreak, allow yourself to grieve, but don't let the pain consume you. Healing takes time, and it's okay to feel lost. Surround yourself with supportive people, invest in self-care, and rediscover your passions. Just like Natalie, remind yourself that one day the pain will lessen and new opportunities will come. Most importantly, don't chase closure from those who hurt you. The closure you seek comes from within. Accept that some people will move on without looking back, but you are responsible for your own healing. Love may fade, but your ability to rebuild never disappears. You are stronger than the heartbreak, and your story is far from over. If this story moved you, you're not alone. Life doesn't stop for heartbreak, and neither should you. Subscribe, and let's turn every ending into a new beginning together.